So switching gears a little bit, are there any challenges that stand out in your memory, either as a student or a professional? And what was your approach to overcoming or working through them?
Okay, I love this question, and I'm going to answer it in two parts. One part is my professional ascent, if I can hopefully call it that, as a composer. And the other is actually compositionally, like when I'm working on something, what is hard, what is not hard. So I will go with the professional one. So as I'm sure that you're not going to be surprised to hear me say that as a woman composer, I do have certain challenges that a lot of male composers probably don't have. All of these are impossible to absolutely prove that it's a thing, but one of the things I do as a composer, a big part of my life, is self-promotion, marketing. I don't enjoy it, but it's a necessary evil. And that's why I'm on like Facebook, and I go to conferences and meet people, and the whole social aspect. When you meet someone, when you interact with someone, how seriously are they taking you? You know, if I get introduced and hi, my name's Lauren Bernofsky, and that doesn't make sense. Let me try this again. So if I'm meeting someone and I tell them my name and then I say, yes, and I'm a composer, it is almost always the case that there's no follow-up question. You know, maybe the person takes a step back or two, or they're so used to composers coming and say, oh, you want to play something of mine? I'm sure you're going to love this piece. You know, and I know that no one wants to have like a lot of composers coming in. Well, actually, I shouldn't say no one, but most players don't seem to love having composers come up to them and say, oh, take a look at my piece. But anyway, so I'm starting with, let's say they don't know about me at all, and the way I look to them and the way I speak and carry myself, these things are going to go into their impression of what I'm like as a composer. But the fact that I'm a woman, it's probably not helping me. Because, hey, most people have gone to school and they're studying all the major works that are important to learn for the trombone. And how many works were written by a woman that you're studying? Probably zero. I mean, depending on who your teacher nowadays is. Okay, there's a chance that you've been required, I would love for that, to play a piece by a woman. But I can tell you through my entire undergrad and high school, I never played a work by a woman except for on a concert of student works. So all the pieces that we're doing in orchestra, all the pieces, you know, for my chamber group, my private lessons, all of that, it's music by men. And that didn't even occur to me until years later. I mean, like 10, 20 years later, it's like, well, wait a minute. That's right, not a single piece. So why would anyone think that a composer who's a woman is going to write anything of worth, really? So I have that sort of subliminal thing going on where people just assume that, you know, you're probably not great. All right. And as I said before, you can't prove it, but I'm thinking of ways, well, is there any way that I can kind of demonstrate this, that it's a thing? And I think back to my trumpet concerto. So that some of the trumpet players out there do know of this piece now, and I'm very grateful for that. I have been working so hard to promote this piece and get it out there since it was written, because I think it's a pretty good piece. I think it's useful. And there are not that many major trumpet concertos that get played a lot. So I thought, you know, there's room for another, right? Anyway, so here's a piece. It has been published by Theodore Presser for at least 10 years, probably longer. It has not had a single performance with orchestra by a professional orchestra, just ever, and not even a college orchestra. I've had exactly two real performances. I mean, it had a reading at Boston University because it was my dissertation piece, and I was given, I think, 45 minutes with the orchestra to read a 23-minute piece, thanks to you, okay? And then the premiere was by a youth orchestra at a summer festival in Norway. And then about 2 years ago, it had a performance by the Bloomington Symphony in where I live, Bloomington, Indiana. And that is a pretty reasonable community orchestra. So anyway, I use the trumpet concerto just sort of as a litmus test of really what's going on with me as a composer. And if there's a piece that requires more investment of resources, like let's say I'm I'm a trumpet soloist and I'm offered, yes, here's an orchestra that has contacted me and they're going to let me play one piece. Am I going to risk playing a piece by a woman, which is probably, it's not one of the most respectable pieces, obviously, because it's written by a woman. No, well, it hasn't happened yet. No one has come up to, I had to make these performances happen. So I should say, except for the one in Norway, and that was the premiere with an orchestra was by Gary Peterson, who is a wonderful trumpet player, who lives in Norway now, but he was my colleague and my classmate at Boston University. And a couple of years after I wrote the piece and he played in the orchestral reading of it at Boston University, then he had the opportunity to play. So I should say he did, he was given this opportunity to play with the youth orchestra in Norway. And so that one happened. But anyway, all right. So that's how things are. I should say I am extremely grateful and happily surprised about the obvious, just like straight up trend of an interest in women's music and BIPOC composers' music. So that is helping me greatly. And I have had a number of performances that I think would not have happened otherwise. So that's wonderful. Okay, so the other half of my answer is about challenges to me as a composer as I'm writing a piece. So I could talk for 6 hours about this. So I'm going to just give you like a greatest hits summary. Oh, we composers are such tortured souls, I have to tell you. So my biggest challenge, oh no, they're all biggest. Here's a biggest challenge. Writing something that, and guessing the experience of the audience. So, because I do care about the experience of the audience, not just the players, but the audience, I want a piece that they're going to enjoy. And when I think about a piece that I enjoy, I don't have to, number one, I don't have to try to enjoy it, I just do. Number two, it has a certain amount of repetition in it, because if I just heard something that went from one thing to another, like just lots of melodic harmonic material, that's just, bombarding me for the whole piece, then I'm going to spend the whole time, like my brain is going to be grasping and trying to make connections, and it's just going to be, it's hard work, and it's just not the kind of music I enjoy. How does that translate to my composing? So I'm thinking about having repetition in my pieces, but it can't, of course, just be the same thing over and over again, because that's also a drag. So what I'm thinking about is getting a good balance of repetition of material and varying it a little bit. Now, the difficulty for me is that as soon as I write something, like the same day I write it, let's say I come up with a tune for a new trombone piece that I'm going to write. Say, oh yeah, I like this tune. So then I'll like play it through in my head 5, 50, whatever times. Well, after about an hour of that, I'm sick of it, and now I don't like it anymore. Now, that is my experience because I'm hearing it over and over again, but that's not going to be necessarily the experience of the audience, because they heard it once or twice, or maybe if it's the person learning the piece, maybe they get sick of it too. That's not a question that I have been asking trombone players. Anyway, but you get the idea. My experience of my music is very different from an audience's, and I can't know what it's like to be an audience member experiencing it because they've never heard it before. And for me, I've heard it a million times and I'm now sick of it. So I have to try to guess that, that what I'm writing is still going to sound nice, even though I'm sick of it myself. So that is a hard thing. Another difficulty is the self-doubt that I think all composers have. A lot of them admit to it. As soon as I write something, there's this like little voice in me. It's like, well, what if that's crap? So, I'm at the beginning of a big piece right now. I mean, I've written some later parts of it. It's an opera. And so I could write, arias, like these little self-enclosed things, right? And just yesterday, literally just yesterday, I started writing the opening scene of it. So the pressure is on. You don't want to start your opera with some really, drab music, right? And so now I'm looking at that sketch. It's day 2. I have it here somewhere. Where's the pile of? Let me see. Am I even going to be able to find it in this mess? Oh yeah, here it is. So here's my little sketch. Let me see if you can see that. All right. Anyway, so, you know, I put into finale, I'm looking at it and going, oh, that's a C major chord. That's kind of like, that's so 1850 or whatever. You know, I have all these forces like, yeah, it's a C major chord, but you want a piece that's going to speak to a lot of people in the audience, and not just a new music audience, or at least that's what I want for my music. So I'm going to keep that there and hope for the best and hope that it doesn't sound tired sounding. Anyway, so those are some of my biggest challenges as a composer. And there are plenty more, but I will spare you the gory details.
I think we need to make t-shirts of that. Like, it's a C major chord that's so 1850. I love it.